Christmas is meant to be a season of warmth, laughter, and togetherness. Yet for some, the day arrives quietly, without festive crowds or familial embrace. The world glows with lights and cheer, while they inhabit rooms that echo with stillness. This solitude is not always by choice. It can be shaped by distance, loss, circumstance, or the complex rhythms of human relationships. Some feel the absence keenly, while others have grown accustomed to its quiet. Loneliness, reflection, and subtle longing intertwine in ways that are deeply human. To understand those who spend Christmas alone, we must look beneath the surface of absence. We must explore the emotional patterns, psychological layers, and lived experiences that make this day simultaneously tender, poignant, and quietly illuminating. It is a story of solitude, memory, and the intricate human heart. Christmas morning arrives, and the world seems to hum with energy. Lights glimmer, songs echo, laughter spills from kitchens and living rooms. Yet for some, the day is still. No bustling kitchens, no invitations, no shared stories, just quiet and the soft weight of absence. The silence can feel profound, pressing against the walls and echoing in the heart. There is space to notice details often overlooked: the soft frost on windows, the muted glow of streetlights, the rhythm of a day unshared. Time stretches differently here. Minutes are unmeasured by laughter or conversation, but by quiet reflection and subtle sensations. Being alone on Christmas is not always painful. For some, solitude is a familiar companion, a predictable rhythm that allows reflection, rest, and a slower pace. For others, it sharpens longing, highlighting the contrast between what is and what is imagined, what is desired and what is absent. The emotional experience is complex. Loneliness may coexist with comfort, nostalgia may mingle with relief, and absence may carry both sorrow and acceptance. There is a unique intimacy to solitude, a space to observe one's thoughts, emotions, and memories without interruption. Yet the societal expectation of joy, festivity, and togetherness can amplify the sense of divergence. Cultural imagery intensifies the contrast. Television advertisements and social media display warmth, laughter, and family gatherings as the norm. For the person alone, these images can feel like distant worlds they are permitted to witness but not inhabit. Even those who have accepted solitude may encounter a subtle ache, a reminder of missing connections or past celebrations that now exist only in memory. Memory itself often becomes a companion. Recollections of past holidays, childhood rituals, shared laughter, familiar meals rise quietly. They are both comforting and bittersweet, filling space without occupying it. The present solitude is framed by the past, creating a layered emotional landscape, calm observation interwoven with wistful longing. Even the smallest acts take on new significance. Pouring a cup of coffee, lighting a candle, listening to a favorite song, these gestures become rituals of presence, affirming the self within a day that emphasizes collective celebration. The ordinary becomes deliberate, the mundane becomes sacred. And yet, within this quiet, there is subtle resilience. The person alone navigates emotional complexity with awareness. They observe without distraction, feel without performance, and inhabit the day without needing validation from external rituals. This is not passive acceptance. It is active presence, a consciousness of solitude that is simultaneously tender and aware. The silent holiday is a paradox: absence made vivid, quietness made palpable. It is both space and mirror, reflecting memories, desires, and the tension between isolation and self-awareness. It marks the opening of a story that will explore not only why this solitude exists, but how it shapes identity, emotional patterns, and the human capacity to find meaning in absence. Solitude often begins long before the calendar signals Christmas. It can be traced to childhood experiences, family dynamics, and patterns of connection, or the absence of it. Some children grow up in households fractured by conflict, distance, or emotional unpredictability. For them, holidays are not warm gatherings but exercises in negotiation, avoidance, or quiet observation. Loss plays a profound role. The death of a loved one, the separation of parents, or estrangement from family can leave early imprints that echo across years. Memories of empty chairs, silent tables, or traditions disrupted often create a blueprint for future holidays. They learn that absence is part of the season, that solitude is possible and perhaps inevitable. Social displacement also contributes. Geography, career demands, or migration may physically separate them from extended family and community. Even when opportunities for connection exist, logistical and relational complexities can reinforce the pattern of spending the day alone. Repeated experience of being apart solidifies habits of solitary celebration. Early emotional lessons reinforce these patterns. Children who witness tension, conflict, or unmet expectations during family holidays may internalize caution. Joy can be fragile, interaction complex, and self-protection necessary. Some learn that maintaining distance is safer than engaging fully, that quiet observation preserves equilibrium, and that invisibility can prevent pain. Cultural and social narratives also shape perception. Society prizes togetherness, yet those who repeatedly experience absence may internalize the belief that they are outside these narratives. They may anticipate judgment, misunderstanding, or discomfort, further reinforcing the tendency to spend holidays alone. The internalized story becomes subtle: this is who I am. Solitude is natural. Celebration is optional, external, or even risky. For some, choice and circumstance intertwine. They may actively avoid gatherings to protect emotional well-being or escape social pressure. For others, participation is limited by circumstance, distance, health, or relational estrangement. Over time, what was once external becomes internalized as identity, the one who spends Christmas alone, not by whim but by repeated circumstance and learned adaptation. Yet solitude is not necessarily devoid of meaning. From early experiences of absence arises sensitivity, reflection, and a nuanced emotional landscape. They notice patterns in relationships, rhythms in rituals, and subtle shifts in emotion that others may overlook. Their capacity for introspection, observation, and empathy is often honed in the quiet spaces left by absence. The roots of solitude are both tender and complex. They intertwine loss, adaptation, cultural expectation, and personal temperament into patterns that can shape a lifetime. They are neither blame nor flaw. They are adaptation, survival, and the architecture of emotional life. Understanding these origins allows us to see that spending Christmas alone is rarely a simple choice. It is a lived pattern shaped by memory, circumstance, and early relational experience. And it is from this foundation that the emotional architecture, coping mechanisms, and reflective patterns of solitude emerge, the story that will unfold in the following chapters. Spending Christmas alone is rarely just a matter of circumstance. It shapes emotional rhythms, thought patterns, and relational expectations. Over time, solitude cultivates both resilience and reflection. Those who are alone for the holidays often develop heightened awareness of emotion, both their own and others. They notice shifts in mood, subtle social cues, and the emotional undercurrents of absence that others may overlook. Attachment theory offers insight. Individuals who experience holidays alone often navigate relationships with caution and self-sufficiency. Some may carry anxious attachment, silently craving connection while bracing for disappointment. Others may develop avoidant tendencies, mastering independence and emotional self-reliance to protect against the ache of absence. Their relational maps are nuanced, calibrated to balance desire with self-preservation. Coping strategies emerge as both adaptive and habitual. Mindful reflection, journaling, creative expression, and quiet rituals become avenues for processing emotion. They often repurpose the holiday's symbolism into private meaning. Lighting a candle, preparing a special meal, or listening to music becomes a conscious act of presence and acknowledgement. Solitude becomes a canvas for introspection rather than mere isolation. Emotional regulation is central. They may feel longing, nostalgia, or grief, yet outwardly, these emotions are contained. Rather than express them socially, they are observed internally, analyzed, or transformed into subtle acts of care for self. The nervous system may register tension, but the mind applies regulation, breathing, reflection, or cognitive reframing. This mastery allows them to inhabit a day culturally framed by togetherness without being overwhelmed. Patterns of anticipation also develop. They often plan their day meticulously, creating rituals, pacing activity, or carving space for rest, so that the holiday's challenges are manageable. Unexpected invitations, calls, or social interactions may trigger ambivalence, desire for connection balanced against the comfort of solitude. The interplay between readiness and withdrawal becomes a hallmark of their emotional experience. Yet absence leaves imprint. Even with resilience, the emotional landscape is layered with subtle, achy memories of past gatherings, reminders of lost relationships, or imagined scenarios of shared joy. These feelings are rarely expressed outwardly, but they shape thought, reflection, and mood. They cultivate empathy for others, depth of introspection, and a quiet understanding of relational dynamics. Over time, solitude during holidays shapes identity. The self becomes intertwined with the capacity to be alone, observant, reflective, and emotionally self-sufficient. Yet it also carries longing, the recognition that connection matters, that absence is felt, and that the day evokes both memory and desire. Emotional patterns emerge as intricate tapestries, resilience woven with reflection, independence balanced by subtle yearning. This architecture defines the interior life of those alone on Christmas. It is not empty, it is structured, rich, and deliberate. They have learned to inhabit a world that emphasizes togetherness with quiet grace, managing absence with insight rather than despair. And in understanding these emotional patterns, we begin to see the depth of human experience in solitude. It is not merely a story of missing others, it is a narrative of adaptation, reflection, and the cultivation of presence within one's own company. The emotional patterns of absence are the bridge between early roots of solitude and the reflective wisdom that emerges in conscious awareness. The holiday season carries a quiet insistence. Images of laughter, family meals, glowing trees, and packed living rooms fill media and memory alike. Society tells a story. Christmas is for connection, joy, and celebration. For those alone, this narrative can feel like both illumination and shadow, beautiful yet out of reach. expectation is heavy, friends, family, colleagues, voices often unspoken, project norms that accentuate absence. Even kind intentions may carry weight. Why aren't you with us? You should come over. Each question, each implied assumption, quietly underscores a sense of divergence. Solitude becomes magnified against the backdrop of collective celebration. The person alone often carries internalized pressure. They may ask themselves, am I failing? Should I be elsewhere? Am I doing something wrong? Even those accustomed to solitude can feel its sharp edges amplified by societal messaging. The external expectation of joy collides with internal experience, producing subtle guilt or quiet shame. Self-judgment may accompany reflection. They notice the contrast between their calm, reflective day and the outward exuberance of others. They may replay memories of missed gatherings, strained connections, or family disputes. These thoughts are rarely vocalized but ripple through the day, coloring even peaceful moments with nuance. Paradox emerges: solitude is both protective and isolating. It shields them from interpersonal stress, conflict, and discomfort. Yet it also intensifies the awareness of absence. Expectation becomes a mirror, reflecting both what is and what could have been, amplifying longing without offering relief. The tension is subtle, almost imperceptible, yet persistent. Even routines crafted to provide comfort, preparing a meal, watching a favorite movie, or listening to seasonal music, interact with the invisible narrative of what Christmas should look like. The individual oscillates between acceptance and comparison, reflection and yearning, contentment and subtle unease. This weight is not failure, it is the natural response to cultural storytelling, relational history, and personal longing. It arises from the awareness that holidays are both communal and symbolic, markers of connection, memory, and identity. Being apart does not diminish value, yet social expectations can amplify feelings of invisibility or divergence. Even in solitude, moments of grace emerge. They notice beauty in small rituals, warmth in memory, and comfort in intentional choices. Coping becomes a practice of framing, acknowledging absence without surrendering to it, observing expectation without internalizing it entirely. They learn to navigate tension, preserving dignity and presence in a world structured around togetherness. The weight of expectation shapes not only experience, but insight. They begin to recognize how social norms, media narratives, and family pressures influence emotional life. Awareness brings perspective. The story of what Christmas should be is separate from the lived reality of being alone. The tension between these narratives becomes an opportunity for reflection rather than burden. In this chapter, we see the quiet power of awareness. The person alone carries societal and internal expectations with measured attention, negotiating both without losing presence. The weight is real, but it is not permanent. It becomes part of the landscape that shapes emotional insight, personal choice, and the eventual cultivation of meaning within solitude. Awareness often arrives slowly, quietly, without ceremony. It is not a sudden epiphany, but a gentle noticing, this is how I spend the holiday. This is my experience. For some, it comes after years of repetition, holidays passed alone, rituals repeated, memories revisited, the recognition that solitude is familiar, patterned, and sometimes chosen is itself a form of insight. Reflection deepens understanding of emotional life. They observe the subtle rhythms of their feelings, longing, nostalgia, calm, occasional melancholy, and see patterns that previously went unnoticed. Memories of past gatherings surface, not as regret, but as context for who they are now. Even absence becomes instructive, offering lessons in resilience, emotional self-reliance, and relational dynamics. Self-awareness reframes solitude. They may recognize that being alone is not synonymous with failure, rejection, or inadequacy. It is a space that allows intentional presence, personal ritual, and careful attention to emotional needs. The quiet of the day becomes a mirror, reflecting the interior self, strengths, desires, and patterns that are rarely visible to others. Through reflection, they also confront unspoken longing. It may be subtle, a wish for connection, a fleeting memory of laughter, or the imagined warmth of shared celebration. Acknowledging these feelings does not diminish calm or acceptance, it enriches awareness. Emotional insight becomes a tool, not a burden, allowing presence without judgment and reflection without despair. Patterns of choice emerge. They notice how rituals, routines, and personal practices shape the quality of the day. A cup of tea becomes a mindful act. Music transforms silence into accompaniment rather than absence. Memory becomes companionable, not haunting. Solitude becomes conscious, cultivated, and meaningful. Awareness also illuminates relational dynamics. They see the circumstances that led to absence, distance, loss, estrangement, or personal preference, not as deficits but as context. Reflection allows them to disentangle social expectation from personal reality. They begin to navigate both with clarity, understanding the interplay between their internal world and external norms. Self-awareness nurtures emotional balance. They can experience longing without overwhelm, nostalgia without regret, and reflection without isolation. The quiet moments of the holiday become opportunities for insight, presence, and understanding rather than markers of absence. Ultimately, reflection transforms perception. What once felt like emptiness now holds subtle richness, awareness, choice, memory, and insight. Solitude becomes a canvas for attentiveness, emotional literacy, and conscious engagement with self. The holiday is no longer simply a day to endure, it is a space to inhabit fully, tenderly, and with intention. In this chapter, the person alone begins to understand a profound truth. Solitude is not merely absence, it is opportunity. Awareness is not judgment, it is freedom. Christmas, though unshared, can become a quiet act of presence, reflection, and human understanding. Solitude is not merely endured, it can be cultivated. Those who spend Christmas alone often learn to structure the day with intention, creating rituals that honor both the season and the self. A candle is lit with quiet reverence. A favorite song is played. A special meal is prepared, not for company, but as an act of self-care and acknowledgement. They craft their own rhythms. Morning may begin with reflection, journaling, or meditation. Afternoon may hold reading, walks, or observation of the outside world, snow falling, streets quiet, lights flickering. Evening may conclude with small comforts, a favorite show, a warm drink, or simply the stillness of a space fully inhabited. Each choice transforms absence into presence, stillness into engagement. Crafting solitude requires awareness. It is a conscious negotiation between memory and reality, expectation and desire. They may honor past traditions in ways adapted to their circumstances, calling a distant relative, sending a card, or preparing a dish once shared with family. Rituals become acts of connection, even when alone, linking past, present, and self. Mindfulness amplifies the experience. Rather than fixating on what is absent, they attend to what is present. The warmth of sunlight on skin, the aroma of food, the texture of a familiar blanket, all become anchors in the day. Attention transforms loneliness into awareness, observation into intimacy, and solitude into a companionable presence. This crafting is also protective. By shaping the day intentionally, they buffer themselves from societal pressures, judgment, or internalized expectations. They create a safe emotional container, a space where longing, reflection, and quiet joy can coexist. Solitude becomes not a void, but a landscape for emotional self-regulation and nurturing. Creativity often emerges in these spaces. Some write letters, compose music, draw, or cook elaborate meals. Others engage in acts of service, quietly connecting with community in small, meaningful ways. Alone, they discover capacities for attention, care, and introspection that are often overlooked in the bustle of shared celebration. Gradually, solitude shifts from passive to active. It is no longer only about being alone, it becomes about being present. The day is imbued with intentionality, observation without distraction, reflection without judgment, memory without regret. Solitude becomes a practice, a craft, and an art. Through these acts, the person alone transforms absence into wisdom. They honor the day, the season, and themselves. They learn that Christmas need not be measured by the number of people present, but by the depth of attention, care, and awareness brought to the day. Crafting solitude is a quiet form of mastery. It balances reflection, self-care, and intentional presence, allowing the day to unfold with rhythm, meaning, and emotional richness. In this space, absence becomes opportunity, and the holiday becomes a canvas for conscious engagement with both self and memory. There is a quiet gift in spending Christmas alone. It is not the sound of laughter, the clinking of glasses, or the hum of shared stories. It is the soft presence of self, fully observed and acknowledged. The day becomes a mirror, reflecting memory, introspection, and the subtle rhythms of emotion that often go unnoticed in company. Alone, they encounter the landscape of their inner life. Longing and acceptance coexist. Nostalgia and reflection dance together. Quietude becomes fertile ground for insight, empathy, and emotional literacy. The heart learns to attend to itself tenderly and deliberately. This solitude fosters creativity and intentionality. Rituals are chosen, not imposed. Music, food, light, and reflection become acts of meaning-making. The day is crafted to honor memory and presence, shaping an experience that is both personal and profound. There is resilience in this quiet gift. They navigate expectation, social pressure, and the ache of absence with grace. Their emotional life becomes a practiced art, aware, deliberate, and deeply human. The strength of self-sufficiency is paired with the subtle wisdom of emotional insight. Even absence holds connection. Through reflection, memory, and mindfulness, they remain tethered to relationships, past and present. They understand the ebb and flow of human bonds and the nuances of belonging. Even when physically apart, solitude does not sever, it reframes, allowing presence to exist without dependence or distraction. This quiet gift is luminous in its simplicity. It honors the human capacity to inhabit emotion fully, without fear, judgment, or need for external validation. It demonstrates that joy, reflection, and meaning need not be collective to be real. It illuminates the depth of experience that emerges when one can be present for oneself. In the end, spending Christmas alone is both tender and illuminating. It reveals the complexity of human emotion, the adaptability of the heart, and the capacity to find richness in absence. The day becomes a meditation, a canvas, and a sanctuary. Through this quiet gift, they discover a truth often overlooked. Presence matters more than performance. Reflection matters more than spectacle. Solitude, attended with awareness, becomes a space of wisdom, compassion, and emotional depth. And so Christmas, though alone, can be luminous, intentional, and profoundly human. It is a day of quiet gift, held not in the hands of others, but within the stillness of one's own heart.